630 was awesome. The heavy movement wasn't as bad, but it's when you get to the lighter weight with the 30 seconds back to back, that's like all tension and no resting in between. It's just straight pumping, kind of like just like an air pump, just pumping it into the weight. I mean pumping the blood into the muscle for like 30 seconds and then just keep going. That's like the ultimate pump.
This method is called the 6-30-30. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a compound movement for 6 reps, okay? So what we did is an incline hammer strength press, and I manually resisted Tyrus on the way down, not for a specified tempo. I just counted to 4 to give him something to shoot for. He's gonna fight me on the way down, then push the weight up. So on that sucker, he's focusing on fighting me on the way down. He's focusing on pushing the weight back up. He's not trying to like feel it out, if you will. The next movement, so that's first. Then we went on to the bottom end stretch flies with the incline dumbbells. Do that for 30 seconds. And then finally the band flies, where we focus on the top of the movement for 30 seconds. So a little background on how this all came about. So this is kind of taken away from the book called Positions of Flexion, where they talk about you have your stretch movements, your compound movements, and then your peak contraction type of movements. So we have the compound movement, the incline, the stretch would be the bottom end dumbbell flies, and then the peak contraction is just focusing on that active range at the top of the movement. So we're doing we're just overloading the whole thing with the eccentric, overloading the bottom end stretch, then overloading the top peak contraction. Okay, so let's talk about this, how it came to play. Growing up, I was a manager at a gym in Santa Barbara, California. I was 16 years old and managing this hardcore gym, and a lot of stuff I'd kind of pick up, and I got turned on to this Positions of Flexion book, and I noticed when I was doing dumbbell flies, and I would only feel it at the bottom of the movement. So that last sort of part, which is kind of, so it overloads the bottom, but then, you know, the top is just pure momentum. So then I started not knowing anything about exercise, so I only doing the bottom half of the movement and really overloading that stretch position. Then I'd finish off with a pec deck. So I was kind of, I guess, intuitively for this kind of stuff without even knowing it. So anyways, with these movements here, like I said before, with the incline press, we're focusing on, and that particular one with manual resistance, he's focusing on, you just any compound movement though, you don't have to have the manual resistance on the way down, but he's focusing on fighting me on the way down, exploding on the way up. So with the bottom end flies, he's gonna go as far as he can to active range of motion for his pecs. So what Tyrus is really focusing on there is at the bottom of the movement, he needs to initiate that movement with his pecs. If you can't initiate a movement to target your pecs with your pecs, it's gonna be pretty damn tough to catch up later on. So if you need to, when you're doing these isolation exercises, you're trying to hit that specific muscle, make sure you initiate with that muscle. So he's initiating with that muscle, focusing everything on it, and he's going, how far does he go? How far down did he go? It's an active range of motion where Tyrus, advanced bodybuilder, he can feel where if he took it too far and it's gonna be like shoulder or whatever, it's not gonna be counterproductive. So he's getting a good stretch in the pec. We're getting maximally but comfortably and safely stretch, come up to where he feels like it's gonna get, when as soon as it's gonna start to get easy, he goes back down. Keep that active range of motion. So when I was doing these, I would do it for reps. Now I've found that time's better, so we can focus every ounce of beam and intentionality on the chesticles. And this concept would work for any sort of muscle group we're trying to train. So he's focusing that. The way down, what he's doing is really focusing on, he wants to keep his head down, because a lot of times when guys that can't feel flies in their chest, they're getting their head way up, because you really want your rib cage up, head down, and actively contract that scapula on the way down, get a good stretch in the pec, come up to right before the tension's gonna let off, you can coast through, boom, boom. The opposite on the band flies. He wants to keep that there. Obviously with a band, if he goes way out here, it's gonna be pretty easy. But as Tyrus pulls tighter, 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 it gets harder and harder. So just keeping it. As soon as it feels like it's starting to let up, that's where you start. You're trying to make, instead of making this easier, you know, obviously in a lot of things, like I think Bill Gates has talked about, he likes to hire the laziest people he can find, because they get things done the most efficiently. The weight room is not the place to take that attitude. The path of the least resistance is usually the path of least results. So what we're gonna do here is get hard, and as soon as it starts to let up, before it's gonna get easy, you just keep there, hold, squeeze, squeeze, peak contraction. So we do the compound movement, the stretch movement, and the peak contraction, all in one giant set. So you go 6 reps, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. That's why I've called this method the 6-30-30. And I just, by my own experience, training bodybuilders, came up with it. So we could apply this to any muscle group. So just think about it. If we were gonna do something for quads, we could maybe do a half-filled squat, a sissy squat, a leg extension. I mean, for back, the possibilities would be endless. You could do some sort of, snatch grip deadlift. You could do a straight arm pull down, just focusing on the top and really just getting that good stretch at the top and not coming down at the bottom. Then some kind of peak contraction type of row moving. There's all sorts of stuff we could do this, I mean, the possibilities are endless. On hamstrings, you could do, you could do like for your stretch movement, you could do a straight-legged deadlift. For your peak contraction, some sort of leg curl. I mean, we could keep going on and on. And then, so, I mean, the possibilities are endless. This applies to any muscle group. We're not going to redundant and show 6 different videos on the exact same concept, but try the 6-30-30 and you can eventually morph it to what's best for you. That being said, like, hamstrings do better with like less time under tension than say something like the quads. So you got to keep that stuff in mind, play around with it, find out what works for you. So what we're doing, we're introducing you to the concept, try out how we state it, then evolve it to what best suits your needs.
Man, you just got to block it out and just keep pumping. Like you say, just keep your arms moving and just keep on pumping the blood. And hopefully you don't die before the 30 seconds up.
This is not only going to pump up your testicles, but it's going to test your metaphorical testicles. You have to keep complete focus on it. You don't need to go to some bizarre retreat in the mountains to get, to find your zen. Just focus every ounce of being on what you're trying to work right there, and it's going to be beyond any meditation.